it's like bees to the honey. Honey, 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 honey. It's the SOSCAST, baby.
All right. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the SOSCAST live here on Valuetainment. My name is Adam Sosnick. My voice is coming back after an amazing weekend down in Miami with your people, Fabian, down there in Miami for model volleyball. Linda, you just skated right by me.
Yep.
Right by me.
I was like, who's the hot guy?
Yeah, not
Who's
me.
that man?
All the models. Welcome to the SOSCAST. My name is Adam Sosnick. Thank you for being a part of this. Today, we're talking politics.
Let's go.
Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's relationships. It's always part of the culture of America. And is there anything more embedded in the fabric of America today than election season 2024? So welcome to the panel, everybody. We have a special guest in the house, Fabian Basabe. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Fabian Basabe. Anytime I get a chance to talk like this, I'm going to talk like this. Fabian Basabe, Florida State Representative, Republican. But you're in, correct me if I'm wrong, the wealthiest district in the country.
Yes, sir. We're the largest.
Fisher Island,
zone.
Miami Beach, Bal Harbor. What's your district? 106?
106. Everything east of Biscayne Boulevard and then Aventura back to Miami Shores.
Yeah. I grew up in Aventura, went to high school in Miami Shores, live in Miami Beach. You're my congressman.
That's right.
Maybe I'm on best behavior today.
Yeah.
But thank you. But for the people that don't know you, other than being a congressman, give people your background. You were a reality TV star at one point. Businessman, I don't know what's going on. Give us the rundown.
I like to say I probably had more fun than most people you know in my younger years. For the last 15 years, though, I've been raising a child in South Florida. And I chose this place to make my home. I'm originally from New York City, a city that I love and that I've seen crumble before my eyes. And now I'm in Miami-Dade County, which is a unique opportunity because we are kind of a voice in many things, and we also have our issues. Like, for instance, while I represent the richest district in the country, I also represent North Miami and North Beach, which I have some third world issues there that would just blow your mind.
Yeah.
I mean, you know it because you've seen it. So, I woke up one day in a world that doesn't make sense anymore, and I thought I'd throw my hat into politics. I had the time and the means and the common sense and also the fortitude, right? Because this is not an easy world to enter, especially when you're not part of it to begin with. You know, like there's a lot of career politicians that they don't want you playing in their sandbox. So I'm the new kid. I'm learning as I go, and I'm
in the sandbox in Miami Beach, not a bad sandbox to be in. By the way, today on the PPD podcast, we were talking about all this and then some, and then afterwards we got the time. We spent time with. Remember Bernie Carrick? He was the NYPD commissioner.
Okay.
Under Giuliani. Remember this guy? He was basically saying New York City is an absolute shit show. It started with de Blasio, and now under Eric Adams, it's taking a turn for the worse. So, shout out to New York City in the house, guys. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And to our law enforcement in New York City.
Speaking of politics and sand and beauty, we got Linda Catalina in the house. Conservative, mostly peaceful.
Mostly.
Latina.
Emphasis on the mostly.
Mostly peaceful, Latina.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the house. We're going to be talking some politics with her. Our good friend, everyone's favorite progressive Pixie's here.
Hi.
Can we get a round of applause, Pixie? I mean, at the very least. What you're doing, other than being an internet personality on the internet, you're marrying, figuratively speaking, influencers and streamers with politicians.
Yes.
To do what exactly?
So basically, if you're like a streamer and you believe in like X or Y progressive cause, and you're really into it, like let's say you're really for a mental health advocate, whatever. Well, our ideal is like, okay, we'll find you like a politician who also believes in those stuff, and you guys can work together when it comes to that. So we're just trying to find what do people already believe in, really care about, and being like, hey, you have an audience, you have influence, let's help you get that goal across the finish line. So that's our ideal.
Okay, there she is. And last but not least, Toria Brooks back. You were here a couple weeks ago when Colby Covington was in the house, right? Were you here for Colby Covington?
Yeah.
And you were also here for Dave Rubin.
Yes.
Pixie's back, baby. Yeah. Toria, news personality, citizen journalist, work within Trump world.
Correct, yes. I work for Cash Patel, and I do a lot of merchandise for the Cash Foundation, as well as based apparel, just promoting conservative values and everything we're fighting for.
Okay, Cash Patel. And Cash Patel What was his position in the Trump administration?
He was
formerly?
under national security and defense.
Gotcha. And what's he doing now?
Well, he's spreading the message that it's mission first, and we all need to be involved in the change that's going to happen in the next year for this election.
Okay. And, well, I almost said last but not least, but not last but not least, my national security advisor, Natalia Devay, is in the house. Yes. Defense, Treasury, booking,
Security.
Yeah.
security,
That is true.
Pitbull.
I don't know.
Thank you for being okay. Nat, what's new? How was the weekend?
Weekend was great.
Yeah.
It was fun. We had a really good time. We met a lot of, awesome people. We had great conversation, and it was nice to do something that was like giving back to the community because it was a charity event. So a lot of fun. Spent some also time with the family, which was definitely necessary.
Not a girl.
And it was great to even meet some of you guys. Some of you guys came. They said hi. You had a lot of people come say hi to you. And
Model volleyball. Listen, you tell me that models are playing volleyball in Miami Beach, I'm going to figure out a way to get there.
for a good cause too. We're there.
For a good, a happily married man, Humberto Boyer, is in the house.
Right here in the house.
He's
Pixie.
running valuetainment distribution. On the side, he's arguing with communists online.
Nice.
What
Heck
else are
yeah.
you doing?
I do
So,
that too.
Pixie, you're hooking up streamers with progressive people.
Yes.
What do I have to do to get AOC? I don't swing that way, but I love to talk to her,
Maybe in the near future. We'll see
Maybe-
what happens.
I see whatever.
All right. By the way, Minnect, can we give a shout out to Minnect? Minnect is crushing it. If you're interested in speaking with business leaders, thought leaders, influencers, anyone here associated with Valuetainment, we recently just had Chris Cuomo join Valuetainment as part of our crew. He's part of our strategy. And you can find myself, PBD, Tom, the Biz Doc, Vinny, Cuomo, Sammy the Bull Gravano, our friend Dustin. You can find us all on Minnect. Michael Francis, Matt Zapala, Chaz Palminteri, Justin Waller, Brad Lee, the list goes on. And yes, we do have women. T.O. in the house. If you're looking for advice and you're reaching out to your favorite business leaders, thought leaders, influencers, and you're DMing them and not getting any response, reach out to us on Minnect. 95+% response
Linda,
rate.
you got to get on there. Yeah, Linda
We got to get
gotta
Linda on that thing.
Linda, yeah, she
do it.
Anyway, join us there on Minnect. Let's start the show.
Yep.
Thanks for all for being here. Let's go over some of these topics that we're covering today. Trump, breaking news, swing states crushing it, right? So is he a lock for the presidency, or is there a chance that he's going to be locked up? So we're going to figure out what's going on with that. Vice presidential odds. We'll see who's leading the candidates for that. Is it going to be a female? We'll see what happens. RFK making news because he's officially in the race.
Okay.
He named himself a vice president. I'll give anybody here on the panel $1 billion if you tell me who her name is.
Sean
Nobody knows.
something, Yeah. Michelle something.
Michelle Obama, there it is. No, it's not her. We'll talk about that. He says, he was asked, which candidate do you think is a bigger threat to democracy? Wait till you hear the answer to that. We'll talk about what's going on in the economy. We'll talk about what people are most fearful about with Trump, with Biden, what is most likable about Trump, about Biden, about RFK, Trump potentially ending up in jail. We'll see what happens there. Women's rights, Florida, progressives, abortion. We were talking with all the girls at Model Volleyball.
Yeah.
I said, what's your number one issue? Women's rights.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay,
Every
this is
single girl.
good. I'm glad we're
Yeah,
on
we're
this
going to talk
panel.
about that.
I'm glad we're on this panel.
I don't know if this is true or not, but Republicans are officially trolling Democrats because they're planning on renaming the D.C. airport after Donald Trump. We'll see what happens with that. Last but not least, since we're in Miami, since we're in Florida, we see what's going on with Diddy. He was spotted in Miami at Pura Vida over the weekend.
Yeah.
We'll have that discussion. So,
Lot to cover today.
lot to cover today. And let's get into it. Thank you for guys for being here. If you're just joining us for the first time, subscribe, be a part of the show. If you're a longtime listener, we love you, we appreciate you. Let's get into it. So, these swing state polls. I always say when I talk about polls, FTM, follow the money. All we talk is money, all we talk is money. There's Pew, there's Quinnipiac, there's Wall Street Journal, there's ABC, there's NBC, there's a million different polls. Who I trust is Vegas because they have the money on the line.
Okay.
So, yeah, you like that? Pull up some of these polls of what's going on right there, and let's get everybody's feedback on this. Humberto, do you have those polls in the swing states? So I say this all the time. How many people voted in 2020? It was 100 and... I'm not you guys.
Okay.
In the country, I think Biden 81 million, Trump 75. So 155, 160 million people. But give or take about 100,000 people actually run this country. Why? Because they're in the swing states and they determine every year who gets elected. And I say it all the time, America's basically bipolar. Give me Bush. Nah, fuck Bush. We're going with Obama. Okay, Obama, nope. All right, we're going to go with Trump. No, screw Trump. We're going with Biden. Boom, boom, boom. It's like shake and bake over here, Ricky Bobby. But these people in these swing states control the fate of our country. That's why we see hundreds of millions of dollars pumped into the following states. You got Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, North Carolina, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Each of these states have voted for Bush, then Obama, then Trump, then Biden, and now it's looking like they're going back to Trump's. Can we pull up these stats here, Humberto? Punch it on this, Nat. See what we got here.
So we have Arizona, 47% Trump, Georgia, 44%, and then we've got Michigan at 48%, North Carolina, 49%, Nevada, 48%, Pennsylvania, 47%.
So basically what you're saying is Trump is up 5 in Arizona.
Yeah.
Trump is up 1 in Georgia. Trump is up
3
in Michigan.
6
up
in
6 in North Carolina.
4
Up 4 in Nevada. Come on, help me out here,
3
Nat.
in
You know my eyes aren't what they used to be.
Pennsylvania.
And Wisconsin's tight.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on here. Fabian, you're in Florida. You're from New York. New York, a blue state. You never have to worry about swing states there. Florida used to be purple. I don't know if people remember that. Before DeSantis, it was a purple state. Miami-Dade, born and raised here, also was actually a blue county. It flipped tremendously for DeSantis.
Plus 20.
In 2020, correct. Or 2022.
2022 plus
That's
20
right.
points, right?
Fabian, as a politician, right? You're campaigning. You're looking at polls. You know what's going on. You're reading the tea leaves. How concerned should the Biden administration be that Trump's just going to blow them out of the water when these swing states?
So, firstly, I take offense to being called a politician. But
You are a state representative.
But I'll take it because this is a true community service.
Yep.
I also don't run any polls. I haven't done one since I started because if you really want to know what's going on, walk down to your local markets and have a conversation with everyone walking outside. And if you notice historically, people have been voting against issues, against teams, against their one issue vote. The one issue voters just vote against the other guy that doesn't agree with them. And the biggest problem that we are dealing with right now is that people are truly undereducated on the process, on the issues, on the players. And that's one part of it, right? And then the other part is because people are so busy in their life, they don't have time to really do that work. They're dependent on what's marketed on the candidates that we have. And right now, and that's why smear campaigns have been in the past so successful, right? Because they're not proposing solutions. They're just going to tear down the opposition so that you'll vote away from them. But at this point, we've gotten to a point where people just can no longer afford to not vote on policy. They just can't afford it. Not financially, not emotionally, not morally. It's just, so Trump walking into the White House is something that is going to make a lot of people very happy and a lot of people not very happy. And I represent a district where you mention the mere name of Trump and people literally, I've seen it with my eyes, they curl up into a ball, crawl down and scream like a siren and turn bright red like they're going to explode. And I understand it and I represent them.
Just when you say his name.
I need to engage them and I need to understand it, right? Because he's had some time where he's excited a lot of people and rubbed them the wrong way and he's, had the mean tweets and all of this. And it's distracted from the work when pen to paper, I don't know that anyone can arguably say anyone's done it better, right? So where are we at today? I mean, I can argue both sides of the aisle. I can say, would Ukraine have happened? Would our situation in Israel have happened? Would any of these major issues? Would 4 items at Whole Foods cost $105 today? Would you be able to afford to fill your gas tank and get to work?
Fabian, you said something pretty interesting. You said most people aren't voting for something; they're voting against something. Here's some polling for you: 57% of people are voting for Trump. 31% of people are voting for Biden. I can tell you conclusively in 2020, and I've said this a million different times, a ham sandwich could have ran against Trump in 2020, people would have voted against Trump. Straight up, give me that ham sandwich. And I know people that don't even eat pork would have voted against Trump. But I think the things have changed because now we have data. Now we have 4 years of Trump,
Biden.
3+ years of Biden, and people are like, yeah, give me some of the mean tweets. So I think there's some comparative data going on here. By the way, Pixie, as a progressive who's loudly said you're never going to vote for Trump, are you voting for Biden or are you voting against Trump?
There are specific actions that Biden has taken that I personally enjoy or like. Right now, I'm definitely more on the voting against Trump side of things. That's not to say I don't like anything Biden has done, but and we'll get into this later, but basically when it comes to like the threat of democracy or when it comes to this idea of like, oh, who do I think is more dangerous to be in power? I'm definitely more leaning towards the side of like Trump is that danger.
What's the most concerning thing that you say is a threat to democracy? What concerns you the most?
I think it's because after the election, there were certain actions that he took that made me think like, oh no, like he's really not for real free democracy. One of those is, for example, when he called the Georgia like elected basically,
Yep.
and was saying like, oh, can you find me like 11,807 votes, one more than like what we currently have or whatever, so we could win. So to me, that's like a clear example, and this is a recording, we could like even find it, of hey, this guy doesn't care about like the electoral process. So just things like that, items like that.
Can
wanna
I
add to
interject
that?
something?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, and I'm focused on local elections. People don't realize the significance of local elections in your everyday lives. Yeah. So I'm not arguing for Trump here, but I just want to add something. There is no bigger threat to our democracy than making people's voices not heard on a ballot, and the mere distractions there and the what's been enacted to try to keep a person off of a ballot to hear the voice of our constituents nationally. For me, that's a problem. Yeah. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, to my understanding, basically when it comes to that, the states themselves are the ones essentially saying like, oh no, we don't want him on the ballot. Personally, I agree with you. I think he should still be on the ballot either way. But to me, that's like, okay, that's like a state problem. That you're right, there are certain states that are not being as democratic as they should be. However, like when I think about things like in a federal level, that's where I feel like, oh, Trump is more of a threat. But basically, I agree with you on the sense of like states shouldn't say you can't be on the ballot.
Well, let me pose a question for Linda and Toria right now. Did you see RFK's interview on Aaron Burnett, CNN? We can even probably pull up the image of it. So there was a couple of things they talked about regarding the state and the election. By the way, we saw that Colorado tried to take him off the ballot. The Supreme Court ruled 9-0. 9-0 that you got to keep Trump on the ballot, right? By the way, Supreme Court approval ratings, like recent all-time highs, just because they're basically doing their job. So whether you like Trump or don't like Trump, what I always say is beat him in the game, not in the pregame, right? Shout out to our sports team out there with the mouthpiece. Beat him in the game. Don't try to eliminate him before the pregame. But RFK goes on Aaron Burnett, CNN, and he says the following. He says, both sides are using scare tactics. Republicans say if Biden wins, it's going to be the end of the republic. Democrats say that if Trump wins, it's going to be the end of the democracy. Neither of those things are true. Our institutions are enduring. He talks about the culture issues that are killing us, abortion, guns, border. But he said compared to the two, right? And this is RFK, who's a lifelong Democrat, son of Bobby Kennedy, assassinated, nephew of JFK, assassinated. He says, Trump doing the Georgia election thing, not a good look. But the biggest threat to democracy is Biden and the censorship, because he says paramount to anything is the First Amendment. And the censorship, and we've dealt with this on YouTube, on Meta, on all the platforms, TikTok especially, censorship. That, he says, is the biggest threat to democracy. And believe me, he has not so kind words for Trump as well. But he said Biden, shockingly enough, is a bigger threat to democracy? What do you think when you hear threat to democracy, Linda?
The first thing that I will ask Pixie is, if Trump is such a threat to democracy, then why didn't he just end democracy the first term? You know, I see these liberals and they're always like, they're going to put gays in concentration camps and they're going to deport our brown people and like all these crazy things. And like, what happened to that? Why weren't gays in concentration camps? Why aren't they deporting all brown people? Like, what did he do during his 4 years that was a threat to democracy? And why didn't he end democracy then?
I think the clearest example to answer that is basically January 6th.
Which was a riot. It wasn't an insurrection.
We all have guns.
We all have guns. We have plenty of ammunition. If Trump supporters, which is 65 million of them, and 1 million who were in Washington, D.C., really wanted to take over the Capitol or anything, to be honest with you, they would have pulled up with guns and ammunition. Well, it was a riot, and
what is it?
That's it.
There's a couple of things to break down here. First of all, obviously not all Trump supporters are the same. Just because you try an insurrection doesn't mean that every single Trump supporter is going to try to do an insurrection.
It wasn't an insurrection.
I would say, second of all, it was an insurrection because specifically the whole point of it was to try to pressure Pence into using his power as a vice president to essentially overturn the electorate and nominate Trump as a winner, essentially.
But that's not what an insurrection is.
Yes, an insurrection is when you're trying to essentially overthrow the current government or the government in place.
And you're going to throw the government with flagpoles and iPhone sticks?
A lot of these people actually did come with some level of guns. A lot of these people did come with some level of like tactical measures on them, as well as like police gear as well.
There was no guns allowed. I was in Washington, D.C. that weekend. There was no guns allowed within an entire radius. If they found 2 or 3 guns on people, over 1 million Trump supporters that were there.
It wasn't 1 million. It was 2,000 people breaking into the Capitol.
No, I'm talking about the amount of people that were in Washington, D.C. that day. It was almost 1 million people. I'm just talking about who went to the Capitol, because there was people watching him at the eclipse over a mile away from the Capitol. So if it was a real insurrection, like that they were going to overthrow the government, you really think that people were going to go without AR-15s and guns and everything else, all weapons that would actually overthrow a government?
Well, a lot of them came in with a level of weaponry, but the point of that insurrection was not necessarily to just like kill everybody. It was, again, to pressure Pence, who has said this on record, we can search it up right now, that, oh no, like he was trying to make me, within my power of vice presidency, declare the electorate winner, Trump. And that's what essentially an insurrection is. An insurrection doesn't have to necessarily be 1 million people shooting up places. And then on top of that, they also found bombs in the DNC.
Which they found that before in the DNC and the RNC, and the FBI still doesn't give us any information on that.
Well, here's why. Because there were paid assets and federal employees that were on the grounds, and they don't even want to expose those identities because then that would expose the whole plot. I'm fully convinced that people who pretend to be on our side actually did January 6th, and I think that the entire thing was to try to make Trump look stupid and his followers look unintelligent. And I believe that the reason he called people to go on that day was so they could witness what actually happened. Because the true MAGA supporters were not causing any violence, and you could tell the clear difference between the two.
So just to be clear on the insurrection thing, everyone's favorite topic. I mean, it's amazing. So your estimation is that MAGA was not trying to do that. And I do agree that, I mean, you can have a house party and have an amazing event, 10 idiots start fighting, boom, the whole thing gets ruined. So what I want to get everyone's actually answer on, and then I want to get this, we'll go with that in a second. We can debate the insurrection thing, no doubt. Like the words, is it insurrection, is it a rebellion? Can we at least agree was not a good look for the country that day?
Yeah.
Just on the very least, not a good look.
By design.
Okay, was not a good look, yes?
Regardless, though,
Okay.
it was one of the saddest days for America. Should not have happened. Yeah. Let's learn from this mistake and let's move forward.
Insurrections and all of the goons that were trying to kill us. So I was featured in a part of the campaign for Trump's 2020 campaign, and I went to the RNC to, what is it called, Fabian? Is it the RNC?
Where?
When they do it every single year.
Republican National.
Yes.
Yeah.
In July of 2020, and we were at the White House, and we're having a beautiful event, and there's fireworks, and all of these goons and thugs are outside of the White House screaming like animals, playing loud music, and then they were waiting for the guest. Ron Paul was attacked. A bunch of different people were attacked, literally physically attacking people. If it wasn't for the police that helped me, along with some other guests, literally escort us back to our hotel, we would have gotten physically assaulted. And this is what's going on in DC. I went to DC
Who
4
was
or
this,
5
BLM?
different times.
Was
The
this
BLM and
Antifa? Who was
Antifa.
it?
BLM and Antifa.
And what was their goal?
To literally hate you, to physically assault you.
But you were in the White House behind gates?
Yes.
Yeah.
They were just trying to disrupt the event. But when it ended, we had to walk back to our hotel. Some people were at different hotels around the White House.
Yeah.
They started assaulting people. They did it to Ron Paul and his wife. They did it to Vernon Jones. I mean, you could still see the images and videos online of what was going on. I stayed behind for a little bit until the police came and escorted people like me and others in their cop cars to our hotels because it was that dangerous. So Trump supporters aren't like that, but these people are able to get away with it because they have the media on their side, they have a liberal establishment, and nobody wants to talk about that.
Yeah, that fair point, and we're all glad you're okay, Linda.
Thank
Thank
you.
God. Everyone, give us a moment of for Linda.
And
By the way, do you have that interview that I did with Vinny?
I do have it.
And Pixie, I want to ask you a question. So I actually had the chance to interview, speaking of a threat to democracy, speaking of January 6th, Vinny and I interviewed Jacob Chansley, the QAnon shaman.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Like
my
full
God.
on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Do you have that image?
yeah.
Show it. So here's us talking to the guy. And
with us today, I mean,
look, let me tell you something.
if you see him,
I think we all know this. I've done this a million times. Thank you.
First person.
I'm very like, even Destiny, Candace Owens said this about me. They're like, Adam's just very fair. I'm very in the middle. Like, I'll go this way, I'll go this way. I'm kind of looking for the truth, veritas. So I'm not anything fringe, anything extremist in any capacity. I ain't playing that game. I'm looking for common sense. Yeah, calling bullshit, balls and strikes, umpire vibes. When I sat down with this guy, Jacob Chansley, the QAnon shaman, prior to the interview, like you could see my body language. I'm like, this is what's fucking going on here, bro. Like, like what are the people going to say? By the end of the interview, after getting to know this guy, what's up, Jacob? Like, this is my guy. Because he was actually very smart and very common sense. And shockingly enough, like almost like a hippie, holistic healer. He's like, I was there to heal.
Yeah, he did a prayer.
Yeah, like he was a shaman.
That's not shocking.
So people are so focused on the QAnon part of the shaman.
Yeah.
He's like not even part of that.
Muted.
But he was a shaman. So it was very interesting. So I actually liked what I had to say with him. But I want to go to Pixie here. Totally understand why someone like you or anyone on the left-leaning side of things would understand after January 6th, the threat to democracy, the find me 11,000 votes. I get it. I understand why. I'm not saying that that's valid, but I understand why you think that way. Prior to January 6th, right? Prior to find me the votes, right? Let's table that. What else on his resume would make you say, yep, threat to democracy?
I think an example of that would be the fact that he talked about potentially taking away birthright citizenship. I think that is a very dangerous game to play. I think when you see in countries that have like dictatorships or fascist regimes, that's usually something that they implement.
What do you mean
if not-
birthright citizenship? Like if you're born here in America?
Yeah, that you're not an automatic citizen.
If you are born to an illegal
Like an anchor baby?
parent, correct.
Yeah, but not just
Okay.
even that. He was like also talking about that, and as you guys may or may not know, I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. Like talking about taking that away from Puerto Ricans as well. I think taking away citizenship like that is a super dangerous game to play because if the government can be like, oh, well, now I don't think you deserve to be a citizen despite the fact that you were born here. Who says that it doesn't basically slope into other things?
Okay.
Like, oh, now you're no longer a citizen because you did this thing.
I
didn't
understand.
like.
Okay, valid concern. I'm not even sure if that's an executive order, how that works with Congress. What else?
He also talked about taking away term limits for presidencies. I think that is super dangerous. He joked about having a third term multiple times. I personally feel really uncomfortable with that. I think having term limits for presidencies is super important to ensure that you don't have necessarily a forever president. or so they can't have enough time to do some trickery.
Yeah,
So
but talking versus doing, like you're saying, he said.
Yep.
Well, Joe Biden also said that we were going to be bombed with F-50s if we got too crazy. So, but saying versus doing, like,
Well, I think, what is it? Saying is a precursor to doing.
What policies did he pass that were a threat to democracy?
Well, there's a couple of things, like, in this sense. I think we should not diminish talking about things, because that's a precursor of action, right? Throwing this out there, seeing how much support you can get when it comes to these policies is what you do, like, right before then. So I think being like, oh no, he's just said it, he didn't pass it. Well, what do you think he wants to do? He's saying openly, these are things I want to do. And that's dangerous. That makes me think, yes, he wants to act on it.
Let me ask, I totally understand, a great point. There's a difference between rhetoric and policy. Toria, like for instance, when Trump says something like, you saw when Hannity asked him, the people think you're going to be a dictator. Trump, are you going to be a dictator? Do you remember what he said? Only on day one, right? I'm going to close the border down, and I'm going to eliminate, I'm going to drill, baby, drill. So for someone like Pixie, by the way, she's probably not going to vote for Trump. For people who are already codified on the Trump vote, like they're voting for him regardless. What I know about you is you're actually pretty fair, even despite being hardcore on the Trump side of things, working with cash. When he uses those types of words, even as a Trump fan, Trump advocate, are you kind of like, don't say stuff, don't say you're going to be a dictator? How do you feel about that?
I think he was making fun of the media because every single thing he says gets twisted. We know about the bloodbath comment, which was actually about the auto industry. So anything that he says, he knows. And I believe it was Trump himself that said, all press is good press. So he thrives off people twisting what he says into something else. And I think that he's smart for that because he takes control of the situation and he's not afraid of what's to come.
Let me ask Fabian a question. As our non-politician, Linda made a great point. Difference between rhetoric and policy. So, politicians, what's the famous line? Like, I knew you were lying because you were talking. Your lips are moving. Rhetoric versus policy. Linda mentioned that.
So I think, and I agree with her 100%, and I think that people are starting to see that as well because it's just been so sensationalized. But one of the main things that I talk about is why? Why does he let this happen? I mean, obviously, whether he does or doesn't have the discipline to refrain from saying certain things, why does he let it happen, right? I mean, is no one advising him? And something that people need to realize is these elections, and I notice what they cost, like statewide, national elections costing billions of dollars, they shouldn't cost this much. And that's a huge investment. So what is he doing? He's taking a skill set that he knows in marketing and owning the media for 6 cents on the dollar. Now, do I like that it has to happen? Do I like that it's happened? No. Do I understand it? Yes. Do I take everything he says personally? Do I take offense to it? No. I'm built a little tougher. I'm also from New York. I understand that tone. I get it. But at the same time, is that the only reason to vote or not vote for the man? At the same time, he was able to, for the most part, self-fund, a tremendous campaign, which it should just be based on debates and proposed solutions, but it's just not that way anymore, right? And for you to say that one person is proposing themselves to be a dictator, at the same time, would you say that only one machine has been running this nation for the many years? I mean, this program decline is not something that happens overnight. There is a plan, right? And people are suffering. And by the way, politicians on both sides have left people behind a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
Well said, Fabian. Let's get into some of the stats and some of the polling. Great conversation right there. Humberto, you're going to have your work cut out for you because we got a lot going on right now. Let's just start with the Vegas odds. We talked about the Vegas odds. I don't really necessarily look at the Pew or the Quinnipiac. I look at Vegas odds. And by the way, full disclosure, brace for impact, guys. I bet everybody I knew and made tens of thousands of dollars voting on Joe Biden, betting on Joe Biden in 2020. Why? Because everyone's getting so emotional. Everyone's getting so caught up. Trump, Biden. I'm like, yeah, just what's Vegas saying? Because for me, everything comes down to accountability and having skin in the game. if a polling company gets paid to run polls, but if they're wrong and they lose $0, they don't give two shits. If Vegas gets it wrong, they lose millions, if not billions of dollars. So what people forget about 2020, do you know who the favorite was to win the presidency? It was Joe Biden. It was like 175 to 100. So meaning it wasn't even close. Like he was favored to beat Trump. So people were like, what? I had, what's buddy that the Indian guy, super conservative, that did the 2,000 Mules. No, not Vivek. That's my guy.
Dinesh
D'Souza. He did what was the movie he came out with, 2,000 Mules?
Yeah.
And Police State.
Okay, Police State. Super smart guy, amazing guy. He was on the podcast, and he did the whole, on PBD podcast probably a year ago. And I said to him, Dinesh, amazing documentary. It was awesome. You're talking about, anything, by the way, with the documentary, easy to skew, left or right. I said, by the way, do you know who was favored in 2020? He goes, Trump. I go, no, you're absolutely wrong. It was Biden. He's like, how do you know that? I'm like, because I bet PBD, I bet this person, I bet this person. PBD paid me $1,000 on the podcast, straight up. So I just followed the money. So that's what I did. Zero emotion, all logic. Again, I say this all the time. I'm not red. I'm not blue. I'm red, white, and blue, and I follow the green. FTM, follow the money.
Love that.
So if you look at Vegas this time, Trump's the favorite right now. So go to these odds right quick. So Donald Trump favored 10 to 1. So meaning if you bet on Trump, you bet $100, 10 to 11, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nat, you're going to help me out here. You win $91, meaning you bet 100 to only win 91. Biden, what's the numbers for Biden?
It was 7-5. 7-5.
Okay, so you bet 100 on Biden, you win 140. Keep going down the
Michelle
list.
Obama's 14-1. Robert Kennedy Jr. is 22-1. Gavin Newsom is 25-1. Kamala Harris is 33-1. Gretchen Whitmer is 81.
Yeah.
Jen Phillips 81.
And then all other candidates 100 higher. So meaning,
Yeah.
if you were saying, Adam, who are you betting on today? I'll just give me Trump. But a lot of people aren't following this, and they get emotional, and that's how it works. So by the way, I want to get your ladies' perspective. Vice president. Who do you want to see Trump to be his vice president?
Ben Carson.
You want Ben Carson to be?
Yes, I do.
Why Ben Carson?
I feel like sometimes MAGA gets a little bit too caught up with superstars like Carrie Lake and like the newer people like Vivek. I was always betting against Vivek. I knew he would never win the primaries, and I just knew he wouldn't be VP. And a lot of Trump supporters were actually very pissed at me because, believe it or not, I will take like the middle road too. I think that Ben Carson's a very safe option. I don't think he has any scandals. I do not like the women to be, every woman that is supposed to, or it's supposed to be like one of the candidates for VP. I personally know they have a lot of scandals that will be brought to light if they are chosen.
Like what?
I'm not gonna say.
Come on! There's only a million people watching
a lot of
online right
extramarital stuff. I mean, things of that nature. I'm not gonna just talk right now.
Okay.
But,
so you're going with Ben Carson.
I'm going to Ben Carson.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Toria, who would you like to see Trump pick as his VP?
I'm going to give the politician response, and I would like whoever he wants to have. And I think that I think a lot of the people
for freaking Congress out here?
I think a lot of the people that are being pushed are frauds, and I think that almost the more that they're pushed, the less I think they're going to be taken seriously.
Okay. So you have no horse in this race.
I don't have a horse in this race. I think Dan Scavino, the most dangerous man in politics, would make an amazing VP, but he's got other work he's got to work
Dan
on.
Scavino.
He's going to be on social. He's on social, Judy.
Is that DC Drano?
No,
that's Rogan O'Hanlon.
I can't keep up, but I've heard of Scavino. He's great. Yeah. I know you don't give a shit because you're not voting for Trump, but who do you think he's going to pick?
I have no freaking clue. Honestly, no idea. I mean, I've tried searching, obviously, like what seems most likely or whatever. I've seen people say a bunch of random stuff, like Tucker Carlson. I don't know, like how close to reality or out of reality that is.
Very out.
Very out. I've seen all sorts of things. I've seen people talk about Vivek. I've seen people talk about I forgot her name.
Nikki Haley?
Nikki Haley, yeah. Honestly, I'd have no clue.
Natalia,
Yes, I have no idea.
who would you like to see him pick as his VP?
I'll give the same answer as Toria.
No. She works for Cash Patel.
Yeah, you can.
You work for Valuetainment.
Yeah.
You give an answer.
I'm not sure, honestly. I haven't really. I don't
Just say a name.
know. I don't know. We'll go with.
Put me in, coach.
I put
Come on,
Humberto
let
in.
me ask Fabian. Would you like to see him pick a man or a woman? How
I
about
would
that?
like to see him pick a man, I think.
A man.
Yeah?
I
What
agree.
is-
Too.
I think
What
so.
an anti-DEI type of pick that is.
What is that supposed to mean?
Just saying.
Listen, if it has to be a woman VP
Yeah.
to secure a win, then we have bigger issues.
No,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
But
The
like,
only
just-
woman that we can allow is Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I say that that's the only woman that
That's
I
a
approve
woman?
of.
Okay, that's good.
I say talent
Yeah.
to the front.
Who do you
so
say?
I don't.
Who do you say?
Boy, girl, I don't care. Talent to the front. Truthfully, I've been so focused on what's going on here in Florida.
Yeah.
I haven't been researching enough on them. I started, and I'm going down the list, so this is not a preference, but I've been looking up some of the stuff that Tulsi Gabbard.
Tulsi Gabbard, yeah.
And
We're doing a live event with her. When are we doing a live event with Tulsi?
She's saying good
2
stuff.
weeks.
I don't know much about her.
Yeah. How about this? You're in Florida. You're in Miami. You're up in Tallahassee. How often?
Almost half the year.
Half the year?
Oh.
What about Ron DeSantis for VP?
It's unconstitutional. Unconstitutional. It can't be done.
Why not?
You can't have two from the same state.
Yeah.
Is Trump considered
Yep. He
Florida?
moved his residency
So,
to
so
Palm Beach.
all the talk about DeSantis potentially being a VP pick, he can't be?
No.
That's never going to happen.
Do you think DeSantis would be a good VP pick if he could?
I think he's a really hard worker.
Yeah?
I mean, what we've done in Florida, we've set the standard for this nation, and I really hope that people follow our lead. Truly.
Do you think that Ron DeSantis, do you think that relationship with Trump is mendable at this point? After all the rhetoric, all the bluster, all the talk,
No,
where do you see that going?
I mean, having been a little closer to it, I can tell you a lot of stuff is just hyped up.
Yeah.
The one thing about us in Florida is we work with everybody
Yeah.
and anybody. It's about the work.
I'll tell you one thing about Florida. Born and raised here in Miami, like I have friends, dude, I'm from Miami. All the Cubans hate the communist, leftist, Marxists, right? Some of my best friends that I grew up with literally ran Hillary's campaign and Obama. Like, I have deep, deep friends on both sides. Never politically divisive. And then we start doing the podcast here, and I started meeting all my friends from California, all the PHP folks. Shout out to Ricky Aguilar, bro. You're probably watching this right now, Mexicano. He's like, yo, California, bro. Like, he gets so worked
Yeah.
up. I was like,
Yes.
what's going on here? I had no idea how divisive it was, especially in California. And even in New York, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Like in Florida, it's just not as divisive. What is it like to work with in Congress, the left, the right? Like how dysfunctional or functional is it in Florida?
So I think people would be surprised to know that here in Florida, 97% of legislation is actually passed unanimously with both parties.
Wow.
So a lot of it's a show. Now, we do have a top-down system here, so whatever the left, especially if they tend to grandstand a bit on the far left issues, whatever they go back to their districts reporting, that all had to kind of go through leadership, so that was kind of allowed. But we welcome the partnership, right? We do try to include and work together on issues that are common sense based.
How red is Florida at this point? Because I remember in 2020, I went to school at Florida State. I was in Tallahassee. It was the Gore versus Bush election. I was actually an intern at the Capitol at that point, and everything just coalesced into Tallahassee. It was the biggest story in the world. Who's going to be the president? And it was like 50-50. It was the hanging chads. It could have gone either way. Right now, it would seem to be with DeSantis. Florida is no longer purple. It is officially red. How red is it?
This is an important conversation because Florida as a whole, yes, if you just do the numbers, it's bright red.
Yeah.
But my district is not. And my district is the capital of the economy right now.
Yeah.
And we are
Miami,
we
South
are
Florida.
the most my district in particular,
Yeah.
right? In Miami-Dade County, but I represent half of that and the wealthier part. And we are the capital of industry. We are the most diverse community. We are the most international everything. And I try to explain this to people back home. We can pay tax dollars in. If we're not properly represented in Tallahassee, we're not getting any of that money back. So we'll continue to paint the state as bright red as possible, and then they'll just slowly price out us as a problem. And that I don't want to see happen. And I try to remind the right that I ran an election. I guess I won a historic election. I'm the first Republican elected in the history of Florida to represent my district.
Wow.
And I ran a very common sense centered campaign. So I try to bring that discussion up to Tallahassee, where there are people that, for no lack of interest, there's no malice, just a lack of understanding, or things get lost in translation. If you don't know what you're not taught, right? So if I can't bring the culture that we have there, it's a problem. So
Fabian, I'm sorry, not Fabian, Pixie, did you vote for our friend Fabian?
I hadn't moved to Miami at that point.
Okay.
Would you?
He's a Republican. Based on his answers so far, would you consider voting for a Republican like him?
I would.
Common sense.
I would. Well, I have to see the policy.
Do you want to know my platform?
Well, what is it? I mean, obviously,
so
I want to know.
I got into politics for a very specific reason, right? I'm raising a child in the world that doesn't make sense anymore. I'd like to see people bring people back together when they're in these elected positions. So I took very serious positions on guns, gays, and abortion. And it won me the election. So I try to represent this. You know, if you're pro-life or pro-choice, understandably, you have every right to your individual choice. But you're talking about taxpayer dollars and government, so why don't we base this on data? And I got, you know, I probably am the Republican who met with Planned Parenthood more than anyone, at least that's what they tell me. And they gave me data at 12 weeks with exceptions. So I said, okay, let's take the 12 weeks with exceptions and let's put that forward. Now, I couldn't get anyone on the other side to work with me on this. So I wanted to find a compromise. My personal choice was considered in this, but at the same time, I'm considering everyone I represent. I'll tell you about that battle later if there's time, because it's a long one. LGBTQ community, I live among them, I support them. I'm having a huge issue right now. They're not letting me in the Pride Parade, and I just proposed legislation to protect same-sex marriage.
Who's not letting you in the Pride Parade?
Miami Beach and the Pride Parade.
Why?
Because supposedly my presence incites violence. So last year...
Because you're so freaking hot, the gays are going to freak out?
So, thanks.
I don't understand. What size violence?
Want to ride with me? So last year...
I'm not on that team, but...
Last year, I meant in the parade.
No,
So last year, I worked a lot on the controversial Parents' Rights and Education bill. And
was that the Don't Say Gay bill?
Yes, that's how it's been marketed, right?
So you said it? Did you say gay?
Say in Florida, you can say gay all day. Yeah. It is not an issue.
Yeah.
This is all geared towards classroom instruction. But we as a conservative party, we just figure everyone's going to kind of figure it out. No, we've got to invest. We suck at branding and messaging. We really needed to invest in getting that information, those facts, into the hands of people who are being misled by supposed nonpartisan advocacy groups that are just inciting people against a party for pure political business reasons. So they basically said that I betrayed the community that I vowed to support. They had protesters for me and DeSantis, 50,000 protesters. There's video all over YouTube. And I showed up shocked. I mean, imagine my surprise. I'm up there fixing this, removing the prohibition of discussion from classroom instruction and just focusing specifically on the instruction itself. I get home, and I'd been in Tallahassee for these months, and I come home to my beautiful city. I live in Paradise. I'm always in this parade. I know everybody where I live. And I had people I've never recognized and I've never seen just holding up signs, just angry. It wasn't scary. It was painful to watch because I love people. I didn't realize how much I liked people until I got into this role, right? So, and there I am fighting for them behind the scenes while the front of the scenes is being mismarketed, and I get home without any time to represent my part. And I just want to be a part of this so I can have a conversation with people and explain to them the work.
I guess I'm kind of confused because I did read the Don't Say Gay bill. I read like the legislation that was being proposed and passed, and it specifically said that like, oh, I think it's instruction around like third grade or whatever. Essentially, you can't have mention of sexual orientation. So yeah, you literally cannot say gay because that's mention of sexual orientation.
No, it doesn't say that.
We can find the bill right now.
Let's do that.
Okay.
So what it does, now remember, there's the original bill, which is 1069, which you're talking about, and then there's the evolution of the bill when I got elected, which now goes to 8th grade. And in that bill, we removed that section because it wasn't clear. And let's put it this way. As adults, we're supposed to interpret legislation in the best interest of our communities, not to misrepresent it for political purpose. We're talking about kids here who are lost. You know, we're trying to give them an education, and it should be balanced, and they should be free to talk to their teachers in their community about anything and everything. You know, think about kids that are struggling about their identities on a playground, let alone within their own bodies. We don't even provide, before we get into a conversation whether you want to transition children or not, we don't even provide resources for them on campus. You know that we have counselors with like a certificate. We don't have masters of child psychology, early child development. We don't provide this. What are these advocacy groups doing if not working towards providing this? They get 6-figure salaries, federal, state, local money. You know, they campaign. They're supposed to be nonpartisan, and they take positions against everything that we do here in Florida.
Well, let me ask the ladies a question before I'm gonna let you do your thing, Pixie. Ladies, you know, part of the reason that we do this show is because I don't want it just to be an echo chamber of all men speaking or just me and all women. I want to have a man, I want to have a congressman, I want to have left, I want to have right conversations. I think the more conversations we have, the better. So that's why I want to have conservative, I want to have a liberal, I want to have a progressive, I want to have an anti-communist Marxist like Humberto out there over there. I want to have Natalia who's still fucking figuring it out. We're working on her. It's all good. And then, I was at model volleyball this weekend, and I was asking all the models, all female, except for the one girl that transitioned. It was a whole nother conversation there. But I said, what's the most important issue to you? The single most important issue to you? Half of them were like, I don't know, what are the issues? And then I had to name the issues. And then they all said women's rights, abortion, bodily autonomy, freedom of choice, my body, my choice. So, I mean, most guys are economy, the border, immigration, culture wars. So I want to know, just round the table real quick, and then we'll pull up some of the abortion stuff with Biden and everything with that. What's the number one issue for you, Toria?
I would say the illegal surveillance of Americans, FISA Section 702. FBI unlawfully surveilled so many Americans, and we should be using that against foreign and domestic terrorists.
Was this part of Homeland Security in 2001? What was this?
This was in the last decade.
Okay. So you're saying the number one issue to you is the...
illegal surveillance of Americans.
Okay.
And censorship.
Gotcha. So you're in the RFK camp. What he had to say.
I think RFK is just like some of the others that can use certain talking points. I'm not saying that he's a bad guy. I just think that he was thrown into the mix to take votes away from both sides. But Donald J. Trump actually said so himself. He said, I love that he's running because he thinks that RFK is more of an issue for the Democrats than for us.
He did say that. Polling would reflect maybe some otherwise, but Trump tweeted the other day, radical, progressive, liberal.
Yes.
And it was, we'll see what happens with that. Pixie, what's your number one issue?
Personally, I am very passionate about like poverty legislation. As like I've mentioned before on this podcast, I really believe in like economic mobility. So essentially policies regarding that and the ones that I think are most effective is what I care about most.
So poverty.
Yeah.
So what is the...
Would that be the economy?
What would that be?
Yeah, that would be, I guess, like related to like economic reforms or welfare reforms. There's like a couple of things like under that I think this panel is going to jump me for. But essentially, I hope that we move into a future where, especially since AI is getting so advanced, where we have some level of UBI.
That's where I was going. Is it UBI? Is it minimum wage? Is it basically this whole... UBI, welfare state situation?
Yes, like UBI, minimum wage, housing especially. Housing is a huge crisis in this country. People are just having their rent go up and up and up.
Gotcha.
We're not building enough supply essentially for the demand, and that causes so many other problems down the line. But yeah, things around that.
Linda Catalina, mostly peaceful Latina. What's your number one issue?
Basic stuff. So the economy, illegal immigration, censorship as well. Those are like my top three. Definitely not abortion.
Not abortion.
No.
Nat, you were there. How many girls said?
A lot of them. I do have a lot to say about that because I take a very moderate approach, which we can just.
No, I'm going to bring that up. Nat, what's your number one issue?
I'm similar with Miss Linda, immigration. That's a big one for me. Obviously, the economy, but those are.
What is it about immigration that it resonates with you?
Well, my parents aren't from this country, so their struggle to get here, and it's funny because I just had the passing of my grandfather, and they were talking about like the story of what they did, and my grandpa back then in 1976, he came from Guyana with my grandma, and they would help house the immigrants, let them get on their feet, and then they would go. And it was just interesting to hear the story of, how back then that was such a service and it was such a good thing, and they came out to be good individuals. And but today, that is not happening. They're coming out of force. They're coming out of horror. They're coming out of there's a way to go about it. And when things are taken advantage of, like immigration, they're coming in here and attacking our police. They're attacking our security. We're worried about, people that's not bombing, but essentially it's its own way of attacking the country. People coming here and they're hurting families, people, and climbing the wall. It's savage behavior. And so when you see that just openly, happening into the country, it's a little
page a little bit.
it's a little disturbing. And my family, they're very grateful to be here.
Fabian, maybe not so much you, but your district. Like you said, listen, I'm going to the markets, I'm meeting people. What would you say is your district's, your constituents' number one issue?
Well, I think it would be education. I don't think we're resolving anything without a properly educated populace. I mean, obviously the economy is important, public safety is important, but people really need to know what's really going on.
Okay.
And how to think for themselves.
Humberto.
What about for you?
I'm gonna go last. Humberto, go ahead. What's your number one issue?
You know what's really sad, Adam? That the only thing that can make Democrats win the election is killing babies. That's the only platform they have. Like literally, like it's abortion, women's right. Like candidates and voters. Like I don't vibe with people that are like so selfish that the only issue is who they are. There's so many problems in America right now. The economy, inflation is out of control. Illegal immigrants coming in. Like as a legal immigrant right now, I'm offended. Like they cap the H-1B visa every year at 80,000 people that are like me, that we have a college degree, we work really hard, no felonies, nothing. We've been doing everything right, and they only let 80,000 like qualified people in, and the last few months they've been letting in like 100,000 every 2 or 3 days. So like I take offense to this. This needs to be fixed.
I just want to make a comment on the abortion thing. I think one thing a lot of the liberals miss is that everyone who's proposing abortion, they're not taking into effect women's health. Like the amount of women who have died on the table. A former head of Planned Parenthood actually called abortion the fries and McDonald's of the business, because if you're going to a McDonald's, fries and soda, it's like one of the most profitable things because it's cheap. And they look at it like a commodity. And that's the aspect that's not really talked about.
So personally, I mean, I don't know that I would ever partake in an abortion, right? But as a legislator, and part of my campaign was to be respectfully pro-choice. But at the same time, we can give a choice so that we can take away this debate and stop negotiating life, and then we can just invest in resources, and we can have competitively the lowest numbers of abortion in the nation. Yeah. I mean, I'm good with that. Is that something you would support?
Well, if someone has choice, I believe that they should be educated. And there's actually a lot of information that's out there. If no one's actually seen an abortion performed, it's obviously grim, but there's a documentary called Unplanned, and it's all about it. And I actually went to the March for Life back in 2016, and it's just, it is very educational, regardless of what view you have, just to kind of see the reality of the situation.
But for me, I would like to see the negotiation of life stop. And I agree, people don't know what they're getting into. They don't know the life-term physical, psychological effects of it. Sure, that's part of it. But at the same time, you don't have to take away a 12-week or whatever the numbers. I'm a guy. I shouldn't even be. I'm not a doctor. This is not my subject matter. But I'm not an expert. But at the same time, I was so shocked to know that when I proposed something backed by Planned Parenthood data, I couldn't get a counterpart to support this on the Senate side. My senator in the north part of my district is a Democrat, and he had to file this legislation. Let it time out, along with some LGBTQ stuff, like stuff that actually can move us forward to a healthier tomorrow, like they're not allowed to advocate for anything but the extreme, and that's the issue. And arguably you could say that about both sides. So I'm not saying that one side's more right than the other, and I certainly wouldn't want to have the conversation or the counterpart to drag us to a common sense center. I mean, we're here to represent everybody.
We're gonna pull up some of these stats in these articles. By the way, I'm shocked. No one said my number one issue. Actually, deeply offended.
Which is?
Okay, I'm gonna curse right now, so censor your kids. The fucking national debt is out of control. It is out of control. It's insane. We are a capitalist country. We are the gold standard for the world. You're talking about babies and guns and borders, all important issues. If our economy crumbles and we can't pay our national debt, kiss this country goodbye. By the way, Humberto, do you have the U.S. national debt? By the way, I see red, I see blue. Do you know, here's a little fun fact RFK brought up. Do you know that Biden and Trump have added more to the national debt collectively than every president put together since George Washington? The number's not good. Can you pull up the debt clock, Humberto? It's insane. If you want to have a manic, depressive, epileptic episode right now,
I'm good.
Stay tuned to what's going on right here. We're going to circle back to the abortion in a second. Can you pull that up? Because then there's some stats that we can show with all this. It's insane.
You mean this one?
It's just called the debt clock.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can put an image.
Do you have that stat? Like, do you have the numbers on how many countries are no longer trading on the U.S. dollar today?
No.
I mean, do people realize the impact of this globally?
Well, is this BRICS? Is this what's going on with that?
We are no longer considered the most powerful nation for quite some time now. And this is where we, as a responsibility for what we are able to optimize and create for this economy, for our nation, and what that means worldwide as a position, how we can affect real progress for other nations. This really is. I mean, it's part of the education part. Just
here you go, Humberto.
That's the one.
I'm always I'm always like punch in, see what's going on here.
Right?
Wow,
dude, if you try to just punch in, look at these numbers. I think
won't stop moving.
We are where are we at right now? $34 trillion. I've said this before. If you go into business with Jesus 2,024 years ago, and you made $1 million a day, boom, million, boom, million, boom, million, boom, every day, you and Jesus slanging Easter bunnies.
What?
You would not, at this point, not have $1 trillion that you have made in revenue. So we're talking 34 trillion. We have no clue. So we can do the cultural stuff here. We're gonna have a conversation about abortion. We can talk about grannies with trannies and this, and chicks with dicks, and borders and guns. Good. FTM, follow the money. It's insane.
Write that down.
Trump, Biden have added more to the debt collectively than all presidents put together. And we're out here arguing about whether a girl should play volleyball with the guys and the guys with the girls. It's insane. So I think, to me, how are we not focused on this? Now, Trump, from a cultural standpoint, he just won the whole Easter weekend with Biden's defending Transgender Day of Visibility, where Trump is defending family and faith. The ironic part is, you can make the argument that Biden actually goes to church every Sunday and Trump golfs every Sunday.
Trump goes to church still in Palm Beach, just so you know.
Still?
Yes.
When did that start?
A long time ago.
Okay. Well, good. But the point is, he won the weekend. Cultural warfare. But the economy. Trump called himself the king of debt. He's called himself this multiple times. But from a woman's standpoint, when I interviewed all the models, just to circle back here, I got a little fired up. Women, overwhelmingly, this is their number one issue. Can you pull up the issues, Trump and Biden, and who's winning on that? So here are the top issues in the country. So there's only two ways that Democrats are going to win this election, in my opinion. They play to their base, which is women, or they just double down on the threat to democracy. Because we did the key stats in the swing states. Trump's up, Trump's up, Trump's up, Trump's up. Here are the issues. Top issues for voters. Economy, Trump's up 20 points. Thanks, Bidenomics, shrinkflation. Immigration and the border, Trump's also up 20 points. Mental and physical Ability to be the president, Trump's also up 20 points. Abortion, Trump's down 22 points, the Republican Party. So this is a losing issue for Republicans. Like, if they don't get their stuff together, here's the stat for you, by the way. The Biden campaign eyes victory in Florida with focus on abortion rights. Do you have that article, Humberto? Democrats view Florida as pivotal, with abortion rights seen as a rallying cry after the Florida Supreme Court upheld DeSantis' 15-week abortion bans, paving way for the 6-week abortion ban. You're familiar with this. Trump called the 6-week abortion ban a terrible mistake. Trump teased he will announce a new abortion ban this week, offering no other details, basically saying in private conversations Trump has expressed a 16-week abortion ban. Pixie, unless Republicans fix their abortion stance, are progressive liberal women ever going to vote Republican?
Oh, I think absolutely not when it comes to the abortion stance, essentially. I think a lot of progressive women, it's crazy because the Republican Party, first they were like, oh no, this should be a states' rights issue, states should decide. And then you have a bunch of candidates, especially when they were running for presidency. Now they've decided not to. Obviously, Trump is a proposed nominee. But they were talking about having a federal abortion ban and how this was like necessary for the country. So it's like, okay, first you're saying state rights, states should decide, and now you're saying no, actually the government, the federal government should decide when abortion happens. So to me, that's like a giant contradiction. It kind of also shows that the Republican Party is in disarray. There's not like a really clear united front of like when abortion should happen or they should completely ban it. You have a lot of people saying that life begins at conception. So any level, even taking the morning after pill or whatever, is an immediate abortion that should not be allowed. That's a very religious stance. I don't think it's actually based on science, and we could even go into specifics of arguing this. But the point is, it just seems like the Republican Party does not have it together when it comes to a united front on abortion, and that just lets the extremists take over.
If Supreme Court Justice Pixie was voting on this, where would you want to see? You want to revive Roe versus Wade? What do you want to see?
I would want to revive Roe versus Wade. I think people... and I know like this is a whole debate argument, but I do think people have a right to abortion to a certain extent. But yeah.
At what extent?
That's $1 million question.
When is too much? Because I think it's like 90% of abortions are done in the first trimester.
Yes.
So this whole like pervasive narrative of like, oh, they're having abortions at 45 weeks. No.
Most people, that's also the other problem. Most people, the vast majority of people, do not have late-term abortions unless if it's risking their life, essentially. Gotcha. So then to completely try to ban it, to me, seems insane, because it's not like most mothers are waiting for the 9 months, essentially, to decide, oh, I don't want this baby
where do you
anymore.
stand on this issue?
So I have to agree with her. I'm obviously pro-life. I work for pro-life organizations. I fundraise for pro-life clinics in Miami. I've helped them, with goods and stuff like that. But I have to agree with Pixie, where and me and Republicans and conservatives clash on this. Actually, Tim Pool and I were fighting yesterday on Twitter, and his casting director banned me. Essentially, I'll never be welcome back on Tim Pool because she's an extremist. But I'll tell you about that now.
What was the position?
So she's right, where we said, Trump said, we're going to overturn Roe v. Wade, give the rights back to the states, let the states decide, right? We did that. That is a huge win. That's something that Trump ran on, and it's something that people were looking forward to 50 years, I think, in the making, these pro-life organizations. But they don't want to stop there. Now they want to involve the federal government again and say, we need to have a federal abortion ban at, I don't know, whatever they said, 6 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it is. And so us people who understand how to win elections are saying, we don't want to touch this subject anymore. We're going to leave it up to the states, and we're going to let the states decide. And so they come back to us and say, well, you're a progressive in sheep's clothing. You're a fake Republican. Yes, you're a fake conservative. You're just giving them, how are we going to win? That was the argument with Tim Pool's cast. The argument was that they live secluded in the middle of the mountain. They don't interact with real people. They're not activists. They're not on the ground. They're simply commentators. And their argument is, well, what are we conserving? What are we conserving? We don't ban abortion and stop killing babies, then we're not conserving anything. who cares about winning if we're gonna, fold on abortion? And it's like, we didn't fold. We already overturned Roe v. Wade and gave the power back to the states as we said we would do. So now let's just not have this conversation anymore and move forward with what matters most to voters, which is the economy, legal immigration, etc. So, I wrote back to her and I said, well, there's a lot more at stake in terms of winning, like, hello, the foreign wars, the economy, the national debt, I name all these things that matter. And so her response back to me was saying that, I'm a feminist and we're conceding an abortion, da-da-da-da-da. Tim Pool comes back to me and says, he's very, what we like to call black pill. So he basically thinks that every election is stolen and whatnot. So he comes back to me and says, elections are not won by convincing people to vote, on issues. Elections are won by going to homeless shelters and just getting fake ballots and then, just, I guess, doing fraudulent stuff. And I mentioned you as an example. I said, really, because we flipped a district in Miami Beach, 25 years, held by a Democrat, by having a moderate person on X, Y, and Z. But again, there's a lot of people, what I like to call chronically online conservatives, who just simply think that being extremist in every single issue and not being strategic is going to win elections, and it's not going to happen. I don't believe Trump is going to have a national abortion anything. I've heard it from advisors, from him himself, where he's like, we don't want to touch this subject anymore. The 6-week abortion ban is actually hurting DeSantis. I also said that yesterday. I've spoken to voters on the ground. He did this behind closed doors after he was elected in November 2022. Yes or no, Fabian?
Correct.
And even I'm sure your district and other districts had things to say, hey, I don't necessarily agree with the 6-week abortion ban. Will I not vote red? No, I'm still going to vote. But it's just not ideal. So I'm very strategic, I'm very business, and I just don't think that having a federal abortion ban for Republicans, it's going to win them.
This is actually such a fascinating topic because I want to get Toria's perspective here. There's not much you and Pixie probably agree on, okay? Super conservative, super progressive, but on this issue, you're aligned. Newsflash, women care about their bodies probably as much as anything.
But I do want to say that it's not about me. Like, I don't care I wouldn't have an abortion. It's not about what I want.
You want to win.
I'm very pro-life.
You want to win elections.
I'm a businesswoman. I'm strategic.
That's my point. Is that what's more important, a victory or a moral victory?
Right.
Winning elections or a moral win for your side? Because this is dude. Look at those numbers again, Humberto. Throw those stats up there.
I guess I'll never go to Tim Cast.
Trump down the ballot, and then overwhelmingly. Biden and the stuff you just had up there with the abortion stuff.
Can I just add something to it? Because I think it's not just about the win, right? It's about doing what's right.
Same stat you just had.
And if you, as conservatives, right, if you don't agree to disagree, right? If you can't respect that somebody else will disagree with you and their freedoms for that, then you don't really believe in freedom, right? So we've got to get to something of a compromise, and the social issues can no longer be the distraction from the economy.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and just because abortion is the issue right now, I actually have more faith, and I love what's going on in Florida because people are starting to wake up to the issues, right? And I really appreciate that we have abortion going on the ballot this November, but that's not to say that people are going to say, well, I'm voting down the line. By the way, that's not necessarily the way to vote. Choose your warriors, choose your issues, educate yourself on what's going on, and make those voices heard. Because if you're just going to either extreme and just going down the ballot, you're hurting yourself.
Well, Republicans lost in Ohio with the abortion issue a few months ago. Ohio, which is a red state, they ratified the right to abortion in their constitution, mostly black men, by the way, and also legal marijuana. This is a very conservative red state. And so us strategic, smart people are telling Republicans, hey, you're losing at the state level. You're losing seats. You're losing in these issues, and they're not listening. So would I say it's the Trump campaign? No. Kellyanne Conway, who's involved, she's very much pro-contraceptives. She has a different perspective. So I think he does have good people that understand that this issue could cost them the elections. But there is also a lot of other people on the more conservative Christian side who just want to make it about a total abortion ban. And it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Can you show that stat one more time? I'm going to ask Toria this question. Yeah, there it is. Look. And there's some other stats we're going to show. Guys, just Trump's winning overwhelmingly, we showed the key, the swing states, the biggest issue, the economy, the border, the physical and mental ability to be the president. If the Republicans want a surefire way to lose, keep running on this 6-week abortion ban. The evidence is there. Linda, who's a conservative, fully agrees. Toria, where do you stand on this?
I feel that we're in the state of this country because we have sacrificed our morals and the nuclear family has been completely destroyed. And as Christian conservatives, if that's what you believe in, I don't think you should waver just because it's a political issue. And if that's going to be the case, then what do you really stand for? Because we're in a season right now where you got to put your foot forward and be strong in your convictions, whatever that is. And I respect people's views who differ from mine, but that's where I'm at.
So you fully disagree with Linda?
I believe that I side with the supreme law of the land, and whatever they're going to decide is what I'll stand with. But I believe that as Christians, you're allowed to have a strong stance.
So everything she just said, I mean, I'll let you guys have this discussion right here.
I think she's allowed to believe what she's saying and that it may be an issue.
Don't you think it's a losing issue for Republicans?
If it's a losing issue, then I have nothing to say about that. I think that you have to take a stand, one way or the other.
Look, here's what I can tell you about Democrats. All right? They want to win. Straight up. Policy-wise, very hard to find a better policy than what Republicans are doing. The Democrats, put me in, coach, I just want to win. Open the border up, I don't give a shit. Free money over here, welfare, I don't care. Sure, let the ladies do what they want to do. They win, and then they govern, and that's how that works. Republicans, and respect to you, are like, I would never, not on my watch. And it's like, all right, cool, have fun not winning, buddy. We just saw what happened in the midterms in 2022. It was supposed to be a red wave.
Yeah.
But the Dobbs decision came down, and then it was a red teardrop because every Republican was crying.
It was a little wave.
It was a little wave. It was like a boop. Give me a little meow. Yeah. So, like, if that's the position, I actually respect the hell out of you, but get ready for Trump not to win.
Oh, I don't think that's going to be the reason.
But as an elected and a statesman, you do have
yeah.
to represent all, so it's definitely something to consider continuing that conversation.
Yeah.
Linda, please have this conversation
No,
with
I, it is what it is. A lot of Christians feel that way. That's actually why the team at Tim Cass doesn't like me. It's actually a reason why many of the far-right groypers, Nick Fuentes, white nationalists, whatever you want to call them, don't like me. They think, I'm strategic. I'm a businesswoman. I know how Trump thinks. I've spoken to advisors. I speak to politicians every single day. If not, I meet with them like I did yesterday. And it's about strategy, right? And so we have a 6-week abortion ban here in Florida. That's what the voters wanted, right? That's why they elected DeSantis. So we have what we want here, and we let the states decide. That's what the 10th Amendment is about. That's what the Constitution is about. It's about the states and not the federal government. I just think it's funny, just real quick. I don't mean to throw shade, but I don't know if you saw that your boy Fresh and Fit just got caught telling his baby mama to have an abortion. These are men that preach conservatism, and they say that women take no accountability. And he got caught. I didn't
hear anything about what happened.
He impregnated a woman, and now she doxed, not doxed, but put out his information, voice notes, text messages of him saying he doesn't want a child and she should have an abortion. And I just think that's funny because, we have all these men just telling women how evil and bad we are, trying to get your resources, gold diggers. With children for 18 years, and I think it's fucked now. So
how do we know that that was actually accurate?
Just go see.
Okay.
I just have to say
I didn't hear anything about that. So, but where do you stand on this position? Is it wrong for him to?
Yeah, it's totally wrong for him. He should take accountability for his actions. He decided to come inside of a woman. You know exactly what you do when you have sex. You're a 30-something-year-old man. Have the child. It's that simple. Get responsibility. Just like they say, women have no accountability. Women just walk around life having no accountability. Just being women. They have it so easy. You decided to engage in sex. There's contraceptives. There's condoms. There's a pull-out method. I can go into details if you want me to. I'm not going to do it here. But you should have pulled out, and you shouldn't have had that child if you didn't want to have that child. That is your responsibility. Have the child.
Let them know, Linda. Let them know.
Okay, Nat.
Yeah.
Back to DeSantis. By the way, I had no clue about this. This is interesting stuff.
I'm breaking news.
Breaking news with Linda Catalina.
Breaking news.
Again, mostly peaceful.
Never peaceful.
Mostly peaceful.
Put a ribbon on this. You're involved in the political spectrum. 6-week abortion ban. DeSantis. I don't think he was elected on this issue, right?
So the issue is, and I like that it came back to the states, and I believe in the states. I mean, it should be there. I don't know if you all know this, but I actually walked off the House floor. I didn't vote on the abortion issue.
Really? Why?
Because I'm not negotiating life. I'll vote once on this issue when it's right for everyone. And working behind the scenes, I met with every member of the Democratic caucus. I told them that there was data from Planned Parenthood, a real opportunity. I went to the Republican leadership. I went to all the members. They all knew what I was working on. And they gave me some time to do this. It's not like they said, this is the agenda of the day, and you vote for it or we run someone against you. By the way, even if they did say that to me, I vowed to, represent my district. So as much as I personally am a pro-lifer, for my choice as an elected, I'm going to represent all, and I'm going to keep my word to my district. I did the work. And remember, DeSantis, the Republicans in Florida were trying to push for a zero, like a total ban on abortion, right? And they got to the 6 weeks, but they were negotiating against themselves the whole time. The left was only allowed to advocate for an extreme. They would not come to the table. They would not budge, not one day, not 1 minute. And that was a problem. So the Republicans did what best they could with what they had to work with. I wasn't okay with it. I was new to this. It was very, controversial of a subject for me. And I wanted to make a statement. So I walked off the House floor. I didn't know at the time that you couldn't say all of this on the House floor when it came time to the vote. You're either yes or no. And I had prepared a whole speech. I was going to get up there and do this. It's all on YouTube, by the way. Just Google Fabian Basabe abortion, and I go through the whole thing. But when the majority leader told me, he's like, no, that's not the rules. When you're here, it's yes or no. You can only argue yes or no. You can't start brokering a deal on the House floor. I was like, okay, so I'm going to just take a walk. And I figured I'd deal with it later. And then the next year, I actually proposed a bill.
Wait, I have a quick question on that. How do you feel on the issue of cannibalism?
On what?
Cannibalism.
Cannibalism?
Yeah, how do you feel about cannibalism?
I like that it's illegal.
Okay, so you're waiting.
I hope to never be that hungry.
For your district to decide to represent them, but would you do the same with cannibalism? Would you go to cannibalism, plan cannibalism, and wait for them to give you a study on cannibalism?
No, but again,
because I think the point here, and I know some people may sound extreme. Like I'm a libertarian, and I'm against abortion from a libertarian standpoint. I think our body is our first property. I also was in a cooking show, so I know how to bake a cake. So when I mix
Hence
the cake,
the cannibalism thing.
Yeah,
Got it.
When I mix the cake and I put it in the oven, unless someone comes in and throws the cake out, like I'm gonna get a cake, So I think everyone is entitled to their body. So like women are super selfish in this issue because it's my body, my choice. Like, sorry, buddy. Like, you're growing another body, and another person is entitled to their own property that is their body. Like, I don't know what this mixed message thing. Like, I agree
but
that
I also
it shouldn't
agree
be
with
an
that.
issue for this election at a federal level. But and I believe in states' right. That's why I live in this state, and I wouldn't live in any other state. But I don't know why we need data on this.
Well, for me, I was having to make a decision, and I did my research. I did my homework, and I was trying to understand why are we not resolving this? With coming up with the 12 weeks with exceptions, which the majority, you were right. I forgot the number. It's like 94 or 96% of abortions happen in the first trimester, and any others are covered in the exceptions. If we've never historically needed more, why are we advocating for more? And then at the same time, why are we not refocusing on the investment on getting the lowest numbers, on properly educating people, on representing all the lives involved? It's not just the other life that's growing within you, but it's also, those your partner and the extended families. I mean, there's a lot to consider here. It's a difficult subject, and it's a very...
that's why I brought cannibalism. So like eventually in time, because the left will keep on pushing things. They're relentless on pushing things and pushing boundaries. So this time is this. We had the whole Haiti cannibalism deal. There was articles about like cannibalism is a taboo. We should get over it and whatever. Like maybe in 10 years, you're going to be on the floor and you're going to be like, oh, well, maybe if the body's fresh enough, maybe we can eat it. Like, I don't get the logic behind it.
Anyway,
I hope to never be that hungry.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm getting really hungry.
Remember that movie Alive?
Oh yeah, with the Argentina, the flight.
Next subject.
Pixie, serious question. Where do you stand on this cannibalism issue? Are you in it? Are we with
I
it?
love cannibalism
Yeah.
every night, baby.
It's a liberal thing. It's a liberal thing.
Yeah.
But
Watch what's on the front page tomorrow.
But I think at least like from a progressive standpoint, the idea is that there is a disagreement on where life begins. You can say like, oh, you know, technically contraception because then it can like evolve to a baby, but then also it might not evolve to a baby. Like people have miscarriages all the time. We don't treat like a seed the same thing as a tree because a seed has to yet grow. It depends on the stage of development when we start calling it a tree instead of a seed, right? When we start talking about cake batter versus actually being a cake. So just because something can happen, it could develop into a baby, doesn't mean it currently is actually like a human life per se, or like basically a human being. Like I don't consider a cell of mine a human being, even though it technically has human DNA and is part of my physiology. So I think that's where like the progressive argument comes from, where it's like, well, when does life like actually 100% begin? You can't just say a clump of cells because again, if I have my hand isn't the same thing as my life, you know?
What about the taxpayer dollars that are aiding in this, right? I mean, when you are elected, you also have to be responsible for what that money is invested in. And you have the majority of Floridians who don't want their money invested in something like this. And this, well, some people argue that abortion is healthcare. Some people argue that it's an elective surgery because you shouldn't, you know, that shouldn't be your first choice. I'm not arguing for either side here. I'm just asking your opinion.
I think to me that argument's a little bit odd because people argue against like taxes for everything essentially. There's some people who believe like it's immoral to tax people to have like roads, for example. That, oh, shouldn't people be able to opt out of taxes in general? Like, you know, I don't believe in the military or something. I'm not saying I personally actually think that. I'm just saying progressives, some of them think that. And yet we wouldn't argue that it would be that we should take away their taxes per se so that they don't have to contribute to the military. So what I'm trying to get across here is that I understand people not wanting their taxes to be used in one way or another, but at least with the current system we have, everybody gets taxed in ways that they don't like. We can argue for a different system where you can opt in for your taxes, or you obviously have to pay tax no matter what. But it'd be like, oh, I'd rather have the majority of my taxes go to this than this than this, and let people decide like that. But we're not there yet, unfortunately.
I'm going to move on to the next topic. We got a half hour left. My voice is holding out pretty okay. But then I'm going to go eat somebody and
Barbecue is the name
barbecue
of the
it
guy.
up.
Haiti, that's the name of the gang leader. Barbecue.
Oh my gosh.
Barbecue. That's
What? Barbecue? So like Pixie, this question's for you. And then we're going to go into a positive message, and then we'll talk Diddy. And we'll wrap up. So there's this guy called James Carville. You know about him? They call him a Raging Cajun. You ever heard of him?
No.
He was a Clinton strategist. You have the story, Umberto?
Yes, sir.
He said famously, what's the most important issue? It's the economy, stupid. Right? So you know who the Raging Cajun is, James Carville. He was actually, this is actually very interesting. He's a Democrat. He was married to a Republican strategist. It's like, they were like the Kellyanne Conway, George Conway situation in the 90s. You have a picture of him, Humberto? James Carville? The Raging Cajun. Punch in.
Oh my God.
So here's what he said. He was recently doing an interview with our friend Chris Cuomo, who's part of Valuetainment now. Shout out to you, Chris. And he's talking about preachy women in the Democratic Party. And it's turning off men or moderate voters. So hold on. He said the following. Because he's like, I like beer, I like football, I like eating hamburgers, and there's way too many women basically looking down on men. He said, a suspicion of mine is that there are too many preachy females dominating the culture of my party, Democrat. They don't drink beer, or they tell us not to drink beer. They tell us not to watch football. They say, don't eat hamburgers, don't eat meat. It's not good for you. Condescending preaching. The message is too feminine for us men who are Democrats. Everything you're doing is destroying the planet. Everything. That's what he's saying. And you have to eat your peas, stop eating your meat. What do you think from a progressive female standpoint, when a Democratic man says this, does this give you any pause to be like, maybe we kind of have to consider how men feel about certain issues, or is it all about women's perspective?
Well, let me start here. I don't care about your meat or your beer or your football. You do you. If that makes you happy, go for it. I think the Democratic Party has really struggled talking to young men. I think a lot of them have just given up. I think that's really sad. I hope that's something that I can help change in general, or at least when it comes to a progressive standpoint. I don't know. I wouldn't say it's necessarily too feminine, because in my opinion, it's just like not even addressing men. It's like invisible now, you know? It's like, it's just not where it has to be, essentially. I think it's possible to have a platform that appeals to women and men through what issues they believe is most important. So yeah, that's where I generally stand. I think the Democratic Party, has not addressed men's issues well enough at all.
What do you think they can do better?
I think basically, that's a really hard question. I think one of the things that they can do better is to start listening from men, right? I think a lot of men are kind of going through a masculinity crisis in a way, where they feel like a lot of things that are masculine have been portrayed as like wrong. And I think there is a level of toxic masculinity. I think that exists.
Yep.
But it's essentially been marketed and spoken of in a wrong way. So for example, toxic masculinity is not you liking beer and, football. That's fine. That's good. Go for it. Toxic masculinity is when you feel like you can't express your emotions because everybody has told you that a man doesn't have emotions. So you feel like you have to drink a shit ton to basically bury the pain. So I think there's just messaging issues that doesn't really address what issues men face, and instead we try to like diminish it and be like, no.
You're bringing up toxic masculinity and what Democrats can do to ingratiate themselves to more men. I'm going to pull up this stat that I just sent you.
Yep.
Because this is essentially the country at this point. I just texted to you. You got it?
Yeah, I'm passing to the computer.
He's looking for it.
Okay, cool. You can pull it up on Slack. Basically, it gives a breakdown. We've done this on the show before. Who's voting Republican and who's voting Democrat. And it's married men, married women, single men vote Republican, and single liberal women vote Democrat. Be amazing if you had the stat right now, Humberto. There it is right there. Thank you. Punch in on that, please. So, red. You mind punching in?
I can't.
You want me to see it? Want me to read it? Married men.
Humberto, can you punch in?
I can't.
Oh, you can't punch in.
No.
So, gotcha. 68% liberals out there. Toria, let me ask you. You see this. She's saying toxic masculinity. I remember last time we brought up Tate. You were like, I'm playing that game. What is it? A lot of young men are becoming way more conservative, quote unquote, traditional, tradcon type of guys, because of people like Tate, who are basically saying, work your ass off, improve yourself, follow God, faith, family, whereas a lot of women, abortions, liberal, progressive values. Why is it so hard for conservative women, maybe like yourself, to embrace someone like toxic masculinity, like Tate?
Ooh.
I think that's an inaccurate way to describe him. As I've previously stated, I think he's a fraud. I think he's a fraudulent representation of what a quote-unquote toxic masculinity is. True toxic masculinity, if you want to talk legitimate, it's not anything good. It's Joe Biden and the two-tier system of justice. I mean, if you want to talk about the economy and what's going on in New York right now with Trump's trials and whether he's going to jail or not, Deutsche Bank had an ongoing relationship with Trump, and they lent him tons of money that went into his real estate. And Trump himself pledged assets that he already owned to secure the loans. Now, Deutsche Bank actually testified on the stand that he gave back all the money that they lent him. And still, the state came back and they said, well, he caused harm because now that money that was given to him, it should have been given to small businesses. But here's the thing. Deutsche Bank only gives minimum $100 million loans. So if you want to talk about the two-tier system of justice and how masculinity should be, we need stronger male figures in America to reverse what's going on right now and be an example so that other men take charge, so that people like Tate can take a seat.
So I asked you about Tate, and you told me about Deutsche Bank and Trump, which I respect, but stay on the Tate thing.
It's relevant to this topic because if we want to talk about the economy as one of the paramount issues here, and you talk about men being leaders, well, why is the economy so bad? Why do we have a two-tier system of justice that's trying to prevent people from owning property and creating wealth? Well, because we have a lot of low testosterone men running around, or people parading around as high testosterone men that are purportedly setting examples for other men like Andrew Tate.
So what is it about Tate specifically that you think is a horrible example to men?
I think that he might have maybe...
Just to be clear, and I'm going to set you up for this one, and Pixie, I asked you this last time, would you rather date an Andrew Tate type figure or a Dylan Mulvaney type figure? And you said Dylan Mulvaney.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, what?
Well, because I'd rather...
Those are crazy examples.
But correct. So, but I'm just giving you an example. What is it? I was like, is that even a real thing?
Yeah.
And so did your friend.
Very fun.
Well, yeah,
Aaron.
because I'd rather date somebody who is probably not sex trafficked anyone. Like, I don't care
Allegedly.
who it is.
Erroneous. But what is it about someone like Tate that, you know, she's talking about how to ingratiate yourself, the Democratic Party, to bring men back in. Clearly, young men are like, yo, I fuck with this guy. Why don't you embrace someone like that?
I think by design, you know, Tate was inserted into this movement. You know, what is it called? That program he has, something Academy.
The Real World.
No, Academy. It was like a Hustlers Academy. Literally, you have young people, younger than us, that are going around TikTok just blasting his videos, which is obviously going to override the algorithm. So any content could be blasted. It could be him saying, hey, I like cotton candy. That content is going to be blasted over everything else. So he created a way to manipulate content in his favor and push agendas to basically have men womanize, but then, oh, well, if a woman has a certain body count, then, you know, she's a harem or whatever, however he wants to call it. You know, the man tries to claim that he has Christian values, but then he preaches about Islam. So which is it?
Well, he converted. He converted to Islam.
Yeah, later on. But I would say there's probably about 10 talking points he has, and maybe of those talking points, there's a couple of them that might resonate with conservatives. But hey, I could say to Pixie, oh, I know how to be a liberal, and I went to art school, so I'm going to go act like a liberal now, and maybe because I'm attractive, people will believe me. His dad was CIA. He's talked about this in interviews. I mean, he has the ability to manipulate perspective.
I don't necessarily hate Tate, but I don't think he's like a conservative just because he likes Trump. There's a lot of people who like Trump and they're not necessarily conservatives. You know, he has like 3 baby mamas, basically says that you can just go around sleeping with multiple women all the time because you got money and power. How did he make his money, Adam? Doing what? Porn, right? Doing cam work. Is that very conservative?
That was initially
that is not conservative at all, actually. That is how he made his money. And then, of course, by getting young men to sign him to the Real World for $8,000 or $50 a month or whatever it is. So none of that is that conservative. I don't know about the charges. I don't care to get into them, whether he, you know, I don't necessarily think that he trafficked women. I do think women have agency. I don't know about the underage. Again, doesn't concern me. I'm not going to read into Romanian documents or care. But as far as conservatism, he's not by any mean of the word, especially when you have like multiple baby mamas say you never want to get married, yada, yada, yada. So but I do understand the appeal to him for men. Just so you know, I'm the person who brought down Miami-Dade Country School. I know you went there. Yeah. And I actually did it for the children. And there was a bunch of, what ended up happening was in 2021, there was a leaked video of a black drag queen that the school brought, the DEI chair, this crazy woman. Country Day, yeah.
Now you're bringing my high school into this shit? Oh my God.
Well, no, the reason why I'm saying is because you're saying that more men are going conservative, right, versus women.
Well, there's stats out there that show that
there is
young men are going way more conservative and young women are going way more liberal.
But why is that? Because they're pushing all this LGBT stuff on men, on young men, as long as it's
That's why our friend Pixie out here wants to hang out with Dylan Mulvaney.
So... You know, these young guys were the ones that gave me all the content that they told them don't film. They're the kids were the ones that gave me the content to expose the school, and they were sick and tired of the LGBT being pushed. So yeah, there is a war of masculinity.
But I gotta ask you guys a question. I gotta tell you, I think the guys are going to agree. Let me know in the chat. I think there's a ton of similarities between Donald J. Trump and Andrew Tate.
Like what? Like how they made their money? One was work and one was real estate?
Okay. They're entrepreneurs. They both hang out with hot chicks. How many times has Trump been married? Multiple baby mamas.
He got married.
Driving big fancy cars, making money, hanging out with hot chicks, businessmen. There's a lot, like, if you want to go like a Venn diagram of the Tate fans and the Trump fans and where they intersect, a lot of same people. A lot.
Yeah,
By the way, they're all hanging out at the UFC.
So Trump's baby mamas are Ivana Trump, Marla Staples, and Melania Trump.
Marla
right?
Maples,
Marla
get her
Maples,
name right.
so
Yeah.
sorry. And like all great women. And who are Tate's baby mamas? Porn stars? Cam girls?
We don't.
Whores? Prostitutes? What do we call them?
Why are women so triggered by Tate?
No, because men want to fight for him because he validates their behavior.
Why is he having kids with who he says are evil, bad women who you shouldn't have kids with?
Degenerates.
That's my thing. I don't really hate the guy. I actually think a lot of his content is hilarious because he is an entertainer.
Okay.
But why are you having kids?
I got to tell you, I thought
cam
of the
chicks?
3 women on this panel over here with Nat as well, that the one progressive liberal would be railing on someone like Tate, especially because you guys are Trump fans. You two, you're like,
yeah, I'm a businesswoman, and Tate is actually
You're
really
woke?
bad for
We're
us.
awake, not woke.
what's the difference?
Awake. Woke is... Pixie might not like this.
Go for it.
By stereotype, blue-haired, overweight liberals or people that, think they know what's going on, but they've been conditioned by the Mockingbird media to push certain messages.
I just hate men that preach against degeneracy, but they're fucking degenerates themselves.
Ooh.
I don't mind degenerates, to be honest with you. I have a soft spot for degenerate men. I don't care. Just stop
That's
preaching.
why we get along so well.
Yeah. Stop preaching, conservatism and this. Just stop it. Just be fucking real. You like to have sex with multiple women and have cars and cool stuff, and that's it. Just be real. Stop preaching all this anti-degeneracy stuff when you're a degenerate yourself.
Agreed.
Duh.
Yeah.
That's it. That's my issue with them.
Okay. Nat, you want to weigh in on this?
I mean, at the end of the day, I think there's a really big need for a male example today. I think there's positive things in different individuals, but you have to be really careful who you pick. Nobody's perfect, so everybody has their flaws. They may do well in this area and they may do bad in this area. But at the end of the day, I do also believe you practice what you preach. And I'm also not somebody who's also in their life. I don't know what they go through. I don't know what they're around to make those decisions. But I'll respect you. You do your thing over there. I do my thing over here. There's pieces, and there was a time where Andrew Tate did come in, and it woke people up. And it was that extreme side that I don't agree everything with him, but that extremeness woke a lot of people up, from the women to the men. Like, okay, maybe men are a little soft. Okay, maybe I'm a little more on my aggressive male energy. There's things that came out of that whole Andrew Tate phase. Now, is he perfect? No. Do I know all the details? No, I don't. But at the end of the day, I think we're in dire need of a male great example. I think you have to even have a few of them. I like the strength in this area with this person. I like the strength in this area with another person. But at the end of the day, I do agree you take accountability for your actions. And yeah, that's kind of where I stand about it. But I think Andrew Tate, I don't have an issue with the guy. Never did anything to me, and never been one of the girls. So.
Okay. Fabian, you want to weigh in on this?
Sure. So for the record, I wouldn't date either. I do agree there's a war on masculinity, but there's a war on culture, on family, on education. There's pretty much a war on anything that we can think of today. I think speaking as a father of a son, I think we have a responsibility to grow our boys into men. I think that's just as important in parenthood as it is in relationships, right? I think a lot of women seek a partner, if it's a male, and expect it to be kind of the whole package of what you imagine, but it takes work, right? The yin and yang, you've got to work together and grow your relationship. You grow your counterpart. So I guess that's all I have to say on this issue, but working together, I think gets the best result.
Listen, guys, Tate is a American citizen. I think he's going to be released from Romanian custody pretty soon. I'm just putting it out there. Trump Tate 2024. You never know,
I would
guys.
literally
You never know.
I'll go back to Colombia. And
Would you vote for? Would you vote for Trump?
I'll vote for Trump and Tate. I'll go back
Really?
to Colombia and never come back.
Oh my God.
I'd rather live under
South
like a
America's-
literally.
Okay.
But
Guys,
in
doing well now.
in Tate's defense, you know, he is also evolving. You know,
I
you
would
made a
live
great
under the
point.
cartel before
You know,
that.
but at the end of the day, people also
Amazing.
go through these like life changes experience. Like, you know, he went from maybe I would never get married to there was a clip where he said he would get married. So
right.
I also want to give grace to growth because you also want to consider that. But I did want to kind of just put that in there.
Trump Tate 2024. We'll see what happens there. Guys, we're wrapping up right now. It's been a spirited debate. It's been amazing. But as always, we're going to try to do the happy ending.
Yay.
We're going to end on a positive note. We're going to take a weird direction here, a little weird turn. Humberto, I'm going to need your help because we're going to go rapid fire, bing, 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 bing.
Let's do
Pull up
it.
some of these articles. There's negative articles on Trump, on Biden right now, but we're going to try to be positive. We remember in the 2016 election when the moderator asked Trump and Hillary to say something nice about the other candidate, right? So Trump was saying that she doesn't quit, she's not a quitter, and he respected her. Great. Hillary said, I respect how his kids turned out. And respect. By the way, the Valuetainment team was just hanging out with 6'9" center for the Miami Heat, Barron Trump, the other day, 18.
Oh, wow.
This guy's ridiculous. But we're going to go rapid fire the headlines and try to be positive. Here are some of the headlines about Biden. First, voters are unsure if Biden was even going to survive to make it to the second term. You have that headline? Okay.
There it is.
If you don't have it rapid fire, then don't worry about it. Trump losing presidential immunity deal. There it is. Yeah, we'll see if he even survives. Trump losing presidential immunity delay could end up in jail. Trump could face jail time if convicted for the hush money case. We'll see what happens with that. Dems are freaking out because House Republicans are renaming potentially the airport in D.C., the Donald J. Trump airport. They're basically saying they would rather them name a federal prison after Trump. Just negative, negative, negative. So here we go, guys. Here's your opportunity to say something nice about the other team. Toria, let's start with you. You're a Christian conservative. You're part of Kash Patel's team, part of the Trump campaign. Say something nice about Joe Biden.
Well, he's certainly helped boost conservative sales because we can make great T-shirts about him. One of my favorite shirts we made is called Impeach Him, and the eye is actually an ice cream cone, so go buy it.
So he's helping boost capitalism and GDP and sales.
Yay.
Good for you, Joe Biden.
Awesome. Good job.
Here's a tricky one. Pixie, hardcore progressive, doing your thing. You're adorable. Say something nice about Donald J. Trump.
Can it be about the conservatives here instead?
Sure.
Okay. I really like the fact that everybody here, we've had a great conversation, even if we disagree on things in a large margin. I adore the fact that I don't feel talked down to, that I feel like we can have a real conversation, and that you guys are being genuine and true to what you believe in. I don't feel like you guys, I've met people before that I talk to them and it's like, okay, you're an obvious grifter. Like, you're, like, oh my God. But I genuinely believe here, everybody's just trying to present their values to the best of their ability, and I could admire and respect that.
Love that. Thank you. Okay. Linda Catalina, mostly peaceful Latina. Say something nice about Andrew Tate. Go. Just kidding.
I think it's really funny. I think it's funny. I'm just not voting for him.
Okay. Say something nice about Joe Biden.
I actually think he's really funny. You know, I've never really attacked Biden at all, ever, really, unless it's like, very, very few things on the podcast, or if he does something crazy, I just don't really pay attention to him. I think he's funny. I know people disagree with that, but just like how much of a vegetable he is and how he's just like stumbling everywhere in his ice cream and the crazy things that he blurs out, I don't get mad. I just laugh at it. So I don't know if that's nice, but
that was very nice. Natalia, because you're kind of a moderate, maybe center right a little bit. You have to say something nice about both candidates.
Okay. Well, I'll start off with the easier one, which I think is a little bit easier to say something nice, is actually Trump. I think he, as aggressive as he may be, I think he gives me confident that we can get the job done in really big areas that need to, get done. As in for Biden, I don't know if I can say something nice. I just feel very bad for the guy. Yeah. I look at him and I see them kind of just using him as a puppet. And I really don't think he's actually behind a lot of the things and a majority of things that are even happening. So I just want to say I kind of feel just more so bad for him. And, I guess thanks for, being the puppet for that side who needs a voice, and wants to also bring those concerns to the front. So it's unfortunate, but yeah.
I don't think you were that nice to Joe Biden right there.
Really? No, but he is. He's falling around, he looks not conscious. He looks like
your abuelo falling.
It's sad. It's sad when you have someone like a Trump just on it, drilling. You're like, wake up.
Drill, baby, drill. Fabian Basabe, it's been a pleasure having you on. It's been awesome. You're a politician, but you're not a politician. You got your chance right here. I know that you're a Republican. You were the first Republican voted in your district ever, you said?
Ever.
So you're the type of person that's bringing people together. Mm-hmm. You're in Miami Beach. You're doing your thing. Say something positive out there about the country, the candidates. Go ahead.
So interestingly enough, entering this world, and as disgusting of a world politics can be, I've been behind the scenes. I've met some of the players, and I remain inspired. So, and I want that to be a solid message for people out there. There are a lot of good people on both sides truly trying to do the work. We've got to get the business of politics out of the way and start electing stronger individuals. Do you want me to do the two presidents?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I sympathize a lot with Biden. I try to not speak ill of any of our leaders because, they represent us as a nation to the outside world, and we can't seem weak. I'm also Hispanic, and we learn. There's a saying: "You wash your laundry at home." That's the translation. Like we can't be so messy publicly, right? So I do sympathize. He has kind eyes. I've seen him. He's soft spoken, and I really do. I do take offense to the people who've taken advantage of him. For Trump, I think he's an interesting character, but he has ex-wives who actually like and support him. That's not something you see often. He has children who are all hardworking and produce and raise their children. That's not something that you see often when you come from what we come from in Manhattan, right? So yeah, I think I'd like to see some new faces in politics. I'd like to see less of the voting away from, and I'd like to see more campaigns.